maybe we can begin with sitting practice. So come into a comfortable position, whatever that means for you, allowing the head, the neck, the spine to be in alignment. The camera, you can have the camera on or off, whatever you want to do, whatever's useful for you. I will have my camera on. We'll begin by listening to 3 sounds of the bell. Breathing in, I am aware of my in-breath. Breathing out, I am aware of my out-breath. In breath, out breath. Breathing in, I follow my in-breath all the way through. Breathing out, I follow my out-breath all the way through. Following in-breath, following out-breath all the way through. Breathing in, I am aware of my whole body. Breathing out, I'm aware of my whole body. In, aware of whole body. Out, aware of whole body. Breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I calm my body. Calming body, breathing in. Calming body, breathing out. Breathing in, I feel joy. Breathing out, I feel joy. Joy, breathing in. Joy, breathing out. Breathing in, I feel happy. Breathing out, I feel happy. Happiness breathing in. Happiness as I breathe out. Breathing in, I am aware of a painful feeling. Breathing out, I am aware of a painful feeling. Aware of painful feeling on the in-breath, recognizing this painful feeling on the out-breath. Breathing in, I calm this painful feeling. Breathing out, I calm my painful feeling. Calming this painful feeling as I breathe in. Calming this painful feeling as I breathe out. Breathing in, I know that I am breathing in. Breathing out, I know that I am breathing out. In, out. So thank you, dear friends. Let's just take a few minutes to stretch, to get something to drink, and then let's come back. Let's come back at 11 o'clock. Give ourselves a few minutes. As you move about your space, please do so with a sense of awareness and mindfulness. Allow every movement to be to feel fully alive and here. So camera off or camera on, your choice. But let's gather at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Thank you. So dear Thai, dear community, welcome back. So you are invited to stay for as much or as little as the online retreat as you are able to participate in. You're most welcome. I'd like to begin this Dharma talk by listening to 3 sounds of the bell. And please make yourself comfortable. Make yourself a little nest where you can really feel at home. I'm in my kitchen, so everybody should be feeling, it feels great to be giving a Dharma talk from my kitchen table. It's wonderful. So please make yourself comfortable and make yourself at home. Hopefully you're home and safe. So we'll begin with 3 sounds of the bell. This is going to be a short Dharma talk, so we can get outside and walk. So dear Thai, dear beloved community, the name of this talk is Braver Things, Training the Heart for Greater Clarity, Resilience, and Joy. The title of this talk comes from a fragment of a poem by William Carlos Williams. He says, For there is small holiness to be found in braver things. For there is small holiness to be found in braver things. I came upon this poem shortly after my brother died on February 21st. So yes, I'm still grieving his death. And it really spoke to me about the condition, his condition, my condition, and the condition of the world. He was in hospital in Mount Sinai, Morningside, probably the epicenter in Manhattan of the coronavirus. So the question I have is, how do we cultivate these small holiness, or holinesses? I don't know what would be the right word, but a small holiness. And by holiness, I mean a sense of bravery in this global pandemic. Something that perhaps none of us in our lifetime have ever experienced. So Rachel, if you'd show the next slide, please. So here's bravery defined: a quality or state of having or showing mental or moral strength to face danger, to face fear, to face difficulty. This is about exhibiting courage. There is a quality of endurance to bravery. So let's take that in for a moment, all of the various elements when we speak of bravery. Strength in the face of danger. in the face of difficulty. Bravery requires courage, a kind of valor and endurance. Let's turn back to gallery view, Rachel. So I'll state the obvious. When a Dharma talk is offered, it is not just by an individual, it is a collective. So we're actually co-creating this talk together. Our teacher has said, and many other people, that our life is our message. And as a Quaker, a member of the Religious Society of Friends, we often say, let your life speak. Let your life speak. So I may be speaking about my own personal experience. So speaking from the historical dimension, that is historical truths about my own personal life, but there's also the ultimate dimension, the dimension where there is no birth and no death, no up and no down, no coming, no going. And so both, of course, exist. And Ty's very good friend, Paul Tillich, called this place of the ultimate dimension the ground of our very being, the ground of our being. I also want to acknowledge the obvious. I'm a beginner. I am walking alongside you. I am not checking in as an expert. I'm a person who's growing and learning. I also want to acknowledge that every single thing that I am saying, and I've said from the moment I sat down at the kitchen table, comes from our teacher and the community and the Vietnamese people who have produced a Thich Nhat Hanh. So I have a lot of cultural humility. There's a lot I do not know. And there's some things I do know. And it's a privilege to share these things. So our teacher has written more than 100 books, and nearly every single book has the same exact message. Here is the message. The energy of mindfulness, the energy and the practice of mindfulness helps us to embrace our suffering, to calm our body, and to calm our mind. Leave it to a Zen master. All 100 books could be summed up in 4 words. No mud. Let's hear you say it.
No lotus.
No lotus.
No lotus.
Let's hear it again.
No lotus.
No lotus.
No lotus.
No lotus.
No lotus.
Mud, no lotus.
No lotus.
No lotus.
Right? This is a fact. No mud, no lotus. Actually, as members of the Plum Village community, whether we're new or quite seasoned, we actually take a training. We take a training to be aware of our own suffering, to understand it, to listen to it, to embrace it, to get to the roots of it. And so this practice of mindfulness in the Plum Village tradition is like a vaccine for our suffering.
Mm.
And so I'd like to share with you what our teacher has taught us, the step-by-step, which you already know, but because we're human beings, we forget. And so this is by way of reminder. You already know this. You already have this. You don't even need the Dharma talk, but I'm just giving a little tiny reminder of what you already know. So here's the step-by-step that our teacher and the community has taught us about how do we embrace bravery? How do we handle suffering in a global pandemic? Step one, stop. We practice stopping. It's not what you think. It's an art. Samatha or shamatha. So the art of stopping has several elements to it. And I can tell you in my own life, as a person who's been on the run most of my life, running from poverty, running from crazed people called parents, running from Blackness that I disowned, spending most of my life running, I can say I'm an expert on the opposite of stopping. Running from racialized trauma. I could go on and on about the running that I've done in my life, but essentially cut off from, alienated from my own body, the wisdom of the world, the wisdom of the natural world. So stopping is a practice. And it's really hard because we're always in motion, like we're breathing in and out, you know, the heart is beating all the time. So it sounds obvious, like this should be simple, duh, but it isn't because we're constantly in motion. And not only is the body conditioned to move a lot, but we have this society that's constantly pushing us forward. Do more, be more. Some people call it a legacy of white supremacy. So the practice of stopping has an art. And it begins with what we've done. Already, we've started practicing stopping. It begins with an awareness that we are alive, that we are breathing. We're alive. That's a major thing. They're not caught in an old story, whatever the story is. I'm not good enough. I have to be responsible. One of my teachers calls these old stories master assessments that drive the water wheel of our brain. So we breathe in, we know that we're breathing in. Not here intellectually, but here. We follow the breath. So let's give that a try. How about we actually practice this? So maybe with the sound of the bell, to breathe in, come back home, whatever the state, whatever the condition, breathe in, aware that I am breathing in, breathing out, aware that I am breathing out. In, out. We recognize the body, become aware of our body. Very often I feel like a walking cerebellum, cut off from the wisdom, living from the neck up. we have a body. To recognize that. Right now, many of us are living with a lot of tension. Where's the tension in your body? It was really cool. I went to Blue Cliff Monastery a couple of years ago. And in the quiet there of the monastery, I began to feel the tension like deep in my pelvis. I was gripping and holding and unaware of the tension there. So we breathe in and we recognize there's some tension, and we breathe out and we calm down. So this is the practice of concentration. To breathe in, calm the body, recognize we have a body, breathe out. Ty has also offered us in the community walking, and we'll be practicing walking meditation in just a few minutes. So to walk in a relaxed way. Very, very often when we walk, we are future focused. We know this. Like, what's the next thing? And so to recognize that we have a body and we can stand and walk, it's not an insignificant thing. Those of us who can't do that, or can't do that with ease, we really appreciate when we can. Our teacher gives us another practice that's really helpful because our mind wanders and we're busy and we're distracted. And this is the practice of a little tiny poem called a gatha. And it's a way of bringing us back. So, Rachel, we have a beautiful little gatha that we want to share. So this is the gatha, the poem for walking. From our teacher, Thai Thich Nhat Hanh was first and foremost a poet, is a gardener too, many other things. So this is one of his poems. I have arrived. I'm home. In the here, in the now, I'm solid. I am free. In the ultimate, I dwell. I have arrived. I am home. In the here, in the now, I am solid. I am free. In the ultimate, I dwell. Thank you, Rachel. Let's go back together with you. So we have the practice of stopping, the art of stopping. And the second practice that Thai offers is from the Buddhist Sutras, is looking deeply. Vipassana. It's the second element of meditation. So we stop, we may recognize that something isn't right, whatever emotion is coming up or not. And by looking deeply, we actually recognize that recognition is a kind of wisdom. It's clarity. It's a form of understanding. So when my brother passed away on February 21st, I had a lot of strong emotions, as you might suspect, a lot of grief, and I still do. And I began to notice what was coming up for me was anger. Why did he have to die? Why is it that the health disparities exist in this country? On and on. And I realized that anger in me was quite robust. It actually is a go-to emotion. In Plum Village parlance, we say that I watered the seeds of anger a lot. They were very strong, very dominant in my consciousness. But what I realized was that the anger was a defense mechanism. It's like a shield, so I wouldn't feel grief, wouldn't feel overwhelmed. So it was much easier to go to anger because that was dominant. But grief and sadness, no. So that was a moment of insight to recognize what was really happening. It carries with it a quality of understanding, clarity. So step 3, step 1, we breathe, we stop. Step 2, we look deeply. Step 3 is totally counterintuitive. So step 3 is we embrace what's happening, whatever the afflictive emotion is. I like to say we invite our suffering in for a cup of tea. Sit down, have a cup of tea, say hi to our suffering. And I don't mean to be flip about it. This is not easy. Because we do the opposite. Stuff we don't like, we run away from. And it's totally understandable, totally reasonable, especially when we're suffering from trauma. It's a completely reasonable reaction. And so the practice is developing muscle strength, a tolerance to handle our suffering. This is how we build resilience. We can't do it all at once. And we're not alone. We need a community. We need each other. We interarm. So there have been a lot of words. Maybe we could listen to the sound of the bell and come back to our body and our breath and each other and this moment. Would that be okay? Yes? Okay. Great. So we have a step-by-step process, but there's stuff that gets in the way. And our teacher has said, when fear becomes collective, which is what we're in right now, It's overwhelming. When fear becomes collective, it becomes overwhelm. And so we're in collective overwhelm. And we know that our individual consciousness shapes the collective consciousness. So our intention and our dedication that we began this retreat with will help to shape the collective consciousness. Our teacher has said that we need courage. We need bravery to express ourselves when the majority is going in the opposite direction. When we are in overwhelm, we start a little bit at a time. And of course, mindfulness is a foundation for this, because the whole being of mindfulness is for pro-social good. Very often we see mindfulness used as a commodity, commodification of mindfulness, a tool. So we as individuals, as small groups, we can spark the consciousness of our communities. Even in our homes, we can collectively shift the consciousness. And we have many, many examples of that. I am aware that we are today, I believe today, yes, today, we are at the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., an individual who helped to shape and shift the consciousness of society. The Sunrise Movement, right? These young people, the Parkland students. These are all examples of shifting consciousness. This takes tenderness. And it takes courage. So to recap, here's what we have. No mud. Can't hear you.
No
Lotus.
lotus.
Let's hear it again. No mud.
No
No
lotus.
Lotus.
No lotus.
All right. No mud. No lotus. I didn't make it up. Don't blame me. No lotus. Suffering and happiness are. The energy of mindfulness. We can embrace this for healing. We can embrace our suffering. We train to take our suffering out for a cup of tea. We say, hello. And not just our suffering, the beauty of the world. We stop. We practice the art of stopping, looking deeply. We recognize that our consciousness is part of a collective consciousness. We are not alone. So I'd like to conclude with a poem by a beautiful sister, Sister Dee. And this afternoon, we'll have a little mini Dharma talk on how do we cultivate joy. But it's a kind of takeoff on joy, not really joy, something else. If you can hang with us for this afternoon, we'll talk about that. But if we could see Rachel, our tech host, maybe we could end with these words. And again, we'll share all of these poems and such with the community. Maybe there's someone from our organizing team who would like to read this poem. I feel like my voice has been in the community a lot. Love to hear someone else read this.
Annie bowing in. If no one else is jumping in, I can happily read it. Feather at Midday by Sister Danyim. If I had not stopped to watch a feather flying by, I would not have seen its landing. A tiny, pure, white feather. Gently, I blew a soft breath to send it back to the spring. If I had not looked up to watch the feather gliding over the roof, I would not have seen the crescent moon at midday.
Is there someone else who would like to read this poem? We could read it 100 times because it's so beautiful. Maybe one more voice before we're sent off for our midday walk.
I'll read it.
Thank you.
This is Ashley. Feather at midday. If I had not stopped to watch a feather flying by, I would not have seen its landing. A tiny, pure, white feather. Gently, I blew a soft breath to send it back to the spring. If I had not looked up to watch the feather gliding over the roof, I would not have seen the crescent moon at midday.
So thank you, Rachel. We can switch back to gallery view. So again, all of the poetry that and references, we'll send that to you at the end of the retreat. So holding that quality of seeing a feather at midday, we'll go off for our walking practice. And organizers, if you have some comments for the community. Again, thank you so much for your beautiful listening, co-creating this Dharma talk together. Much love to you all and much gratitude.